How's everyone doing today? I'm Algren the Blue, and I want to share with you 5 of my favorite urban legends from my home state of Arkansas. Now, Arkansas has quite a few urban legends that are pretty wonderful in my opinion, so it's really hard to narrow it down to just 5. So what I'm hoping to do is later on wrap back around and give you maybe another list of 5, or maybe even expand it to a list of 10 of my favorite urban legends. But I do plan on doing this for every state because I just love urban legends and I want to share my passion with y'all. Anywho, without further ado, let's get into our list. Starting off our list, we have the Folk Monster. Now, the Folk Monster is basically Bigfoot, as you can tell by the image on the screen. But it is a little bit different. It has longer arms than a typical Bigfoot, and it's native to Miller County, which is where Folk is located. Anywho, sightings of the monster have been reported throughout Folk's history, dating back as far as 1946, when one resident reported a sighting to the county sheriff. She had seen a strange creature lurking outside her home. But there aren't any sightings that are nearly as famous as the one from 1971, which actually gained national attention when Bobby Ford reported to the constable that his family had been attacked in their home by some sort of large hairy creature. According to his wife, Elizabeth, she was dozing on the couch in the front room when she was awoken by the creature reaching its arm through the screen window. It was then that she let loose a terrified scream that brought her husband Bobby and his brother Don running from the back porch. The creature then took off as the Fords gave chase, guns in hand. During the encounter, the Fords fired several shots at the creature and both believed that they had hit it, though no traces of blood were ever found, and after an extensive search of the area failed to turn up the monster, they returned to the house where they did discover three-toed footprints as well as scratch marks on the porch and damage to the window and the house's siding around the window. According to Ford, the creature was an ape-like being that stood about 7 feet tall, was 3 feet wide across the chest, had burning red eyes, breathed heavily, and moved incredibly fast on 2 feet. After the attack, the Fords claimed they had been hearing some moving around in the woods surrounding their home for multiple days before the attack, but having lived in the house for less than a week, they just chalked it up to normal animal noises. So, when a reporter from Texarkana caught wind, he rushed to the Ford's place. And he found the terrified family hurrying up and packing up their house. They had decided to go ahead and move out, and I can't really blame them, you know? If I encountered the Folk Monster, I'd be gone, especially if it reached through my window. But the article that the reporter, known as Jim Powell, wrote is the first time that Folk Monster was referenced. And that's not the only thing that it spawned. After his article was published, it actually inspired a 1972 docudrama horror film, The Legend of Boggy Creek, and it was written by Earl E. Smith and directed by Charles B. Pierce. Glenn Kurth portrayed Bobby, while Bunny Dees played Elizabeth. It actually made $20 million in its box office against a $160,000 budget. So it was extremely successful. But that is what solidified the Folk Monster in Arkansas lore, is not only the movie, but the Gazette's article that went national. Now we're going to move on to our next urban legend. In the heart of northern Arkansas lies the Ozark National Forest, a beautiful and perfect spot for camping and outdoor adventures alike. But hidden within these woods is a mystery that has baffled locals for decades: the Dover Lights. Just 12 miles north of the town of Dover, off of Old Highway 7, a dirt road leads to an overlook above Big Piney Creek. From here you can peer into the valley below and wait for the lights to appear. For decades, people have reported seeing these strange lights, glowing orbs on the hillside across from the overlook. The origins of these lights remain unknown, but legends are plentiful. Some of the locals will say that they're spirits of Spanish conquistadors searching for lost gold, and locals warn that uttering the phrase, "I've got your gold," might provoke the lights to follow you down the mountain. Others believe that they are the spirits of Native American tribal leaders, guiding souls to the afterlife, or perhaps the lanterns of miners who met their end in tragic collapse, forever wandering in search of escape. One of the most detailed stories, however, is of an elderly couple who lived in the hillside in the 1800s. When the wife fell gravely ill, so ill that she couldn't even leave the mountain, her husband brought in a doctor to care for her. The couple were very, very cash poor and so offered homemade bullets to the doctor in exchange for his services. Years later, the doctor had displayed these bullets and was messing with them one day and discovered that they were actually made out of silver and not lead like he had assumed. And it immediately sparked a greedy plan to swindle what he believed was the couple's hidden fortune away from them. But when he returned to the cabin, he only found their graves. So, throughout the night, he did what he thought was the best idea. He searched the property for any remaining silver, thinking that the only way for the couple to be casually using so much silver would be as if they lived near a mine. Therefore, with a lantern in hand, the doctor kept searching. And while he didn't find a mine shaft, he did manage to find a crate of silver bars beneath the elderly couple's house. He pocketed a few of them and vowed to come back the following morning with a pack horse for the rest. However, that night, the doctor died mysteriously in his sleep, and some say the Dover Lights are the spirits of the old couple still searching for their missing silver. Those fortunate enough to have witnessed the Dover Lights describe them as hovering spheres of light that grow and shrink in intensity, changing colors from white to blue to orange and even red. While some people believe the lights are caused by natural gases, others insist they are something far more, something supernatural. And whatever their origins are, the Dover Lights remain one of Arkansas's most enduring and most beloved spectacular mysteries. And now we can cruise on to number 3. Now we're coming to the Dog Boy of Quitman. So, the Dog Boy story revolves around a man named Gerald Bettis. For a long time, it was actually thought just to be an urban legend, and the urban legend was that the house is haunted by a man who used to kidnap dogs and torture them, and he also tortured his parents. Come to find out, it's not just an urban legend, it is true, maybe not the haunting, but at minimum, Gerald Bettis was a real man. He did, as a child, kidnap, I don't know if kidnap's the right word, but he did take the local animals, dogs and cats alike, but he did primarily try to catch dogs. Maybe they were easier, I don't know. And he would torture and kill them, and that's how he earned the nickname the Dog Boy. So, as he grew older, though, he actually ended up imprisoning his parents, and at one point his father was found dangling out the window of the top floor, and the fire department had to come and help him down. It's theorized that Gerald probably threw him out the window in a fit of rage. He was always abusing, starving, just being a very horrible person to his parents. They were literally trapped in their house for the rest of their lives after he became an adult. He ended up building an extension onto the house so he could keep more animals to torture and abuse. Just because he was abusing his parents didn't mean that he gave up his favorite pastime of being a terrible person, an even more terrible person, because obviously abusing your parents is terrible. Then one day his father took a tumble down the stairs. Some say he might have went ahead and threw himself down the stairs just to end his suffering, but most likely Gerald gave his father a shove and ended it finally. I don't know if it's years, it might have been just a few months go by, and mother actually ends up having to go to the hospital because of a broken hip. And while there, she is finally rescued from Gerald when a nurse witnesses him smacking her and threatening her if she tells anyone what he did. Once that happened, the nurse is able to get Gerald's mother moved to Adult Protective Services, and Gerald's never allowed to see her again. After she's finally free and away from him, Gerald naturally goes back and continues living in the house. And that's when he starts growing marijuana. And when he does that, the police finally bust him. You may be wondering, well, why didn't they bust him for his father or his mother or any of the abuse? His mother wouldn't talk and his father never was able to talk. So they got him on marijuana charges. And he ended up in prison. And by, I think, 1988, he ended up dying by an overdose. But that's not where the story ends. After his death, the house was sold to the Weavers, and the Weavers ended up reporting that there was many strange occurrences in the house during their time living there, including things falling around upstairs when no one else is up there, for them to go up there and nothing to be knocked over, doors slamming, toilets randomly flushing. They even reported seeing a man in the upstairs window staring down at them, which is theorized to be Gerald's father. And in the sunroom, which was Gerald's favorite room, they have reported seeing a man that fits his description in there, and they get a deeply unsettling feeling while existing in there. However, the current family that lives there has not reported any issues, thankfully, and hopefully they continue to live there peacefully. I'm not going to include the address to the home because I don't want anyone to bother the current residents, because as far as they can tell, the ghosts are gone. Moving right along. The spooky number 4 spot belongs to the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs. It's often called America's most haunted hotel. Originally, it was built in 1886 as a grand resort for the wealthy, and the hotel quickly became famous for its accommodation and its location in a region known for the Great Healing Springs. However, due to its remote location, as the years started passing, the Crescent did fall into decline, and by 1902, it actually had to be leased out to the Frisco Railroad for 5 years. And following the end of the lease, the business actually continued to decline, especially during the fall and winter months. So, in 1908, the Crescent College was opened as an exclusive boarding school for young women. And the college actually did pretty well. It operated until 1924, when it was forced to close due to a lack of funding, interest, and community support. It tried reopening in 1930 as the Crescent Junior College, but it was only able to remain open for 4 years this time due to the economic strain of the Great Depression. So after the college was forced to close once again, the hotel finally fell into disrepair, and it set the stage for the most infamous chapter in its history, which began in 1937. That's when one of the villains of the story, well, actually probably the only villain of the story, Norman Baker, comes on the scene. He was a former vaudeville performer and radio personality who claimed to be a doctor, though he never had any medical training. He ended up purchasing the property and transformed it into the Baker's Cancer Hospital. He advertised miracle cures for cancer and lured many, many desperate patients in with false promises. Baker's cure was nothing more than a concoction of corn silk, watermelon seeds, clover, and water, which none of that does anything to treat cancer, outside of maybe water, which keeps you hydrated. Tragically, most of the patients who came to Crescent Hotel hoping for a cure never left. They died within its walls, and their bodies were either hidden in secret passages, buried on the grounds, or disposed of in the hotel's incinerator. Over the years, the Crescent has been known for its numerous ghostly encounters, and a lot of them stem from the Baker's Cancer Hospital days, and some from the building of the hotel itself. One of the more famous ones is a construction worker that actually fell from the roof into what is now room 218. Guests who stay there often report strange occurrences such as the doors opening and closing on their own, the lights flickering, and the sensation of being watched or even touched. Another pretty well-known spirit is Theodora. She was actually a nurse during the Baker Cancer Hospital days. She is often seen tidying up room 419 or searching for her keys. Guests have reported hearing a woman's voice asking, "What are you doing here?" or seeing her appear and vanish without a trace. Even Norman Baker's ghost has been known to roam the halls. Dressed in his signature white suit and lavender shirt, he's often spotted near the old morgue, a place where many of his victims' bodies ended up. The morgue remains one of the most haunted spots in the hotel, still containing the old autopsy table and a walk-in cooler where bodies were stored. Visitors on the ghost tours have actually reported hearing disembodied voices, feeling cold spots, and even seeing shadowy figures in the morgue. And a lot of them have claimed to feel a sudden sense of sadness and nausea upon entering the room as well. And today, the Crescent Hotel actually continues to operate, and it draws in guests not just for its beautiful views and amenities, but naturally for the chance to experience a haunting. So whether you believe in the ghost or not, the stories surrounding this historic hotel are enough to send a shiver down anyone's spine. Only one more spot remains. Last but certainly not least, we have the White River Monster, lovingly known as Whitey by the locals. Whitey was first sighted along the banks of the White River near Norport in reports that date as far back as 1915, although some locals actually believe he might have been around since the Civil War, since there have been reports of a boat being overturned in the vicinity. However, the first official sighting happened on July 1st, 1915. A plantation owner near the river spotted the monster. He described it as having gray skin as wide as a car and 3 cars long, with a catfish-like face and a lolling tongue. The news spread quickly and prompted attempts to construct a rope net, but the effort was soon abandoned because they didn't have enough money or material to build one that they thought would be big enough. So flash forward to 1937, and recreational fishermen noticed a major decline in their catches, and soon after, the creature was spotted again. The sighting was reported to Bramlett Bateman, another nearby plantation owner, who later confirmed that the sighting was true. He described the monster as having the skin of an elephant, 4 or 5 feet wide by about 12 foot long, and once again the face of a catfish, and it was just floating there on the surface. So Bateman was concerned that this creature was a threat to his crops. Mind you, some kind of fish creature is a threat to his crops. So he decided to blow up the section of the river where he had spotted the monster. Thankfully, the local authorities stepped in and denied him the necessary permissions, and thankfully he was a law-abiding citizen and sought the proper permissions instead of just doing it. Because regardless of if you believe in the White River Monster or not, that wouldn't have been good for anything if he had blown up the river. Now, the sighting actually created a minor media sensation, and it drew in visitors from across the nation to Newport. And Newport's not a huge city nowadays, and it definitely wasn't back then. However, when no further sightings occurred and deep-sea diver failed to locate the creature, Bateman ended up being suspected of creating a hoax, despite over 100 confirmed sightings prior to that brief period of excitement. Now we're going to flip forward again, and the White River Monster was spotted one last time in 1971. Witnesses described it as the size of a boxcar with a bone protruding from its head and the face of a catfish. One observer noted it looked as if the thing was peeling all over, but it was a smooth type of skin or flesh, and it made strange noises like a combination of a cow's moo and a horse's neigh. Other reports included sightings of 3-toed tracks 14 inches long on Towhead Island, leading down to the river through a path of bent trees and crushed bushes. And the final interesting thing that has happened with the whole White River Monster tale as of now is 2 years after the last sighting in 1973, the Arkansas State Legislature actually passed a bill that was introduced by Senator Robert Harvey that not only created the White River Monster Refuge, which stretches from a southern point of the river known as Old Grand Glaze to a northern point known as Rosie, but it also made it illegal to harm the monster inside the refuge. And yes, sadly, 1971 did end up being the last official reported sighting, but if you ask the locals, all will agree he's still there lurking just below the surface. And with number 5, our list is completed. Thank you so much to anyone that's tuned in and watched this. I would love if you would drop a comment and let me know which of the urban legends you enjoyed the most. And if you have any tips or suggestions, I would love to hear them. This is my first YouTube video, so I'm extremely nervous, but I really hope that y'all enjoy it. Anywho, I plan on uploading another video in, I hope, about 2 weeks, covering another 5 urban legends from a different state. I haven't fully settled on which state I'm going to choose yet, but I'm thinking I'm going to choose one of the states that surround Arkansas. Maybe Mississippi or even Missouri. But tune in next time and you'll find out. Thank you so much. Bye.